Let's dive into it. 10 tools for parents for terrible, tough, and even traumatic times. The first one, and this one's a bit of a hard one to start with, but it needs to be said. Accept emotions. Accept emotions. Have you noticed that quite often, number one, we're not even aware of the emotions we're experiencing because we're so busy, we're so caught up, we're so involved in everything that we need to do. But have you noticed that beyond that, not only are we really caught up in our stuff and we're not aware of our emotions, but have you noticed that when we start to have an emotion that's a little bit difficult, a little bit distressing, a little bit overwhelming, what do? We often get caught up in toxic positivity. We get caught up in this scenario where we say, I need to push this away. I need to be strong. I need to get through this. Just grin and bear it. Toughen up. You'll be okay. And so we start to have this conversation where we push the emotions away. Now, I want to suggest something different. I want to suggest, Trish, you can take notes. This is listed on the blog in the most recent article that landed on the blog. But let's just highlight this emotional situation, okay? What would it look like if you paused and you spoke about your emotions out loud? Maybe you share them with your children or with your partner. And I'm not suggesting that you do it as an unload, as an emotional dump. I'm not suggesting that you completely lose it and say, oh, I can't stand it anymore, and fall in a heap on the kitchen floor and cry. That's not what I'm suggesting. What I am suggesting is that sometimes it can be really helpful to sit down with the family and say, at the moment, I'm not doing this well. At the moment, I'm feeling overwhelmed. At the moment, I'm feeling like things are out of control, and I just want to lock myself in the room and cry. Now, if we say that to the kids or to our partner, not in a way that we're dumping on them or unloading on them, but rather we're just saying, and I want to explore this emotion with you to work out why it feels like that. All of a sudden, the kids aren't the problem and your partner's not the problem. The emotion is this thing that you're feeling. And just by talking about it, it seems to change it. One of my favorite quotes, and if you've followed me for a while, you might have heard this, comes from Fred Rogers. He's the guy that's featured in that movie, It's a Beautiful Day in the Neighborhood. Such a great movie. And in that movie, he uses this phrase about emotions. He says, if it's mentionable, it's manageable. If it's mentionable, it's manageable. In other words, when we can just talk about the emotion we're feeling, when we can just talk about it, it makes it easier to feel the emotion and deal with the emotion. Wone says, yes, I recently discovered the power of this. It's okay to feel these emotions. We don't need to run from them or distract or blame. Wone, I love that. That reminds me of the metaphor that you might have heard me share once or twice, the metaphor of the train going through the tunnel. See, what often happens with our emotions is it's kind of like if you imagine a train going through a tunnel, and as it's going through the tunnel through the darkness, we try to dive into that tunnel through the top of the mountain and rip the train out because we don't want the train to be in the tunnel. We want it to be out in the light. But when we do that, we make a great big mess of the mountain and of the train. If, however, we just wait, the train always comes out of the tunnel. I've learnt to do this with my wife, with Kylie, with Mrs. Happy Families. Every now and again, she's having a really big emotion. And when she's having the big emotion, I remind myself, right now, Kylie's a train going through a tunnel. And she will come out of the tunnel. It might not be today. It might not be tomorrow. It might not be till the weekend. It might not be for a week. Now, fortunately, Kylie doesn't usually stay in dark tunnels for a very long time. But every now and again, she has. We all do. And by recognizing that she's in a tunnel and she will come out, it takes the pressure off. We can just accept the emotion. And once you accept the emotion, and especially, I'm talking about you, but it works for the kids and for your partner as well. What would it look like if you shared this metaphor with them so that they understood what it was? And then next time they're having a big emotion, imagine if you said to them, that emotion is like a train in a tunnel. And if I try to pull the emotion out of the tunnel right now, the train out of the tunnel right now, I'm going to make a big mess. So I'm just going to wait for it to get through the tunnel. Would you like me to wait with you while the train goes through the tunnel? Or would you like me to give you some space? Just doing that. And all of a sudden your child goes, huh, you get it. Or your partner goes, oh, that's amazing. Because they know that you get that they're having an emotion, that the emotion will pass. It's just like the picture on the screen. It's like waves coming in, running up the sand, and then running back out. That's what emotions do. And when we accept them, they tend not to hang around on the sand very long at all. They tend to just go back out. Trish says, I told my son I felt frustrated and sad the other day. He told me to go have a coffee and sit down. I said I wasn't feeling like doing that. His immediate advice to sit and think about people I love, because that works when nothing else does. What a great example. And to top it off, Trish's son is 7 and has ADHD and anxiety. I love that. Kylie says, I found the primary emotion is almost always frustration at not being in control. And what does it look like, Kylie, when you pause and say, the emotion that I'm feeling right now is frustration because I'm not in control and being in control is important to me? As soon as you say that, you get a chance to reframe, to reconsider, to rejig, and what a difference that can make.